Brandon, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon. I'm with Open Media Foundation. I'm the creative director over there.
Great. Hi, and I'm John Aiden. I'm the Director of Education at the Open Media Foundation. And just to make sure, Brandon, can you still see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Great. There's one person with video, Steph. Can you see the screen? If you can, just wave. Good. Great. Excellent. Thanks, Steph. And everyone else, you're muted. And we have the way we have the controls currently set is we will actually have to unmute you if you want to ask a question or anything like that. So you should have on your Zoom controls, if you go to the participants list, the ability to raise your hand. There's three little dots at the bottom of the participants window, I believe, and that will, if you click on that, or there should be a button that says raise hand. So if you click on that, I will hopefully notice it, and we can unmute you and allow you to chime in. There is also the chat feature. So if you want to contribute that way, you feel free to just type in the chat window. And again, I'll try to keep an eye on that and to try to restate what is stated in the chat window. Inside of that chat window, there's a link, and that link will take you to the Denver Open Media page, and there's this whole long list of our various curriculums for the classes that we have offered over the years. At the very bottom of this list, there is this one right here, Virtual Communications, Building Community in a Digital Format. This is the curriculum that we'll be covering in today's webinar right here. There are, hopefully you find some helpful links and other information that you can take along with you back to your work situation. Also, in this list of curriculum at the very bottom, below that one, there is this virtual meetings best practices. This is a one-pager document that Brandon put together that has, a lot of the information that we'll be going over, kind of best practices for virtual meetings. And again, really, if you want to check that out and download it and print it out, hopefully you find that to be a very helpful resource. So again, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. And again, my name's John Aiden. I'm the Director of Education at the Open Media Foundation. And I'll let Brandon just kind of give, if you don't know about our organization, Brandon will really quickly just give an overview of the Open Media Foundation and what work it does for nonprofits in our community.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time today. We hope this is valuable. As John mentioned, please feel free to chime in via chat. You either raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or ask any questions as we go along. I'm Brandon Stiller. I'm the creative director at Open Media Foundation. Open Media Foundation essentially functions as an ad agency for nonprofit organizations. So we do everything from branding and communication strategy to web development and video production. In addition, we have a Denver Open Media, which is a radio station. So you can tune in as you're driving around town on our low power FM radio station that's dedicated to local Denver artists. So if you're interested in finding out more there, you can go to denveropenmedia.org, or openmediafoundation.org is our website on the services side. One last piece of what we do here in order to further our mission of putting the power of the media in the hands of the people, we also have a software as a service that governments use for their transparency needs called Open.media. And that software as a service that John's pulling up here now, we're going to touch on this a little bit because we're opening it up during this time of the pandemic, we're opening it up to nonprofit partners to use for free. And so it's a powerful tool for live streaming and archiving meetings. We're working with a number of organizations to leverage this software for conferences and educational opportunities. So that's a little bit about us. If you have any questions, you can always feel free. I'm going to put my email address in the chat box, and you can always feel free to reach out and ask me any questions you may have.
Great. Thanks, Brandon. And again, if you all have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to chat them, or use the raise hand button to and we'll unmute you as we go through this. The background of this class, Brandon and I were talking with various nonprofits, and we just kind of started to realize that there was a need for this kind of information, and really just to try to bring together some of the tips and best practices for digital communications, especially during this really weird time. A lot of organizations are turning to these communications, to these technologies to deal with, to hopefully still reach their constituents during this time of social distancing and all of that. And we're getting a lot of inquiries as well from nonprofit organizations. We have a conference coming up, or we have our annual meeting coming up. How can we do this without getting 200 people crammed inside of a hotel room? So that's kind of where the genesis of this class and why we started to put this information together. I'm sure you've heard of some of these platforms that we're going to be talking about, and admittedly, there's especially the first two here, Microsoft Teams and WebEx. We don't have a whole lot of familiarity with these platforms, but we do have a lot of familiarity with the other two. But a lot of people are out there using them, and we want to make sure that you are aware of these. Microsoft Teams is part of the Microsoft Office 365 suite of programs, and it is a Skype video conferencing type of platform that also includes chat and files sharing and storage and so on. There is a free version for it, and again, this is linked inside of the curriculum that you can download from that link that we put in the chat box. So you do not have to sign up for the whole Microsoft Office platform to take advantage of some of the free abilities in Microsoft Teams. There's also WebEx. Actually, WebEx is used by the Colorado State Legislature. They're coming back into session next week, and that's part of what we do through our government transparency work. And so WebEx is another possibility for having webinars and video conferencing. They also have a free plan, and it's actually been updated. It used to be there was a limit on the amount of time that your meetings could go on, but now it's actually unlimited. So you can meet for as long as you want with the free plan. So definitely check those out, see if those meet your needs. But we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about Google Hangouts or Google Meet, and talk quite a bit about Zoom, and particularly their ability to reach an even larger audience with their connectivity to YouTube Live and Facebook Live. So just briefly on Google Hangouts. So if you have a Gmail account, you probably know you have the ability to generate Google Docs. There's a calendaring program, etc. Also with that comes Google Hangouts and Meet. And really, it's super easy to use. You can just pull up your calendar and say, I want to set up a conference or a webinar with Brandon. And once you invite someone, so I'm sending this invite to Brandon here, and once you invite them, it generates this link right here, which is the Google Meet link, and it's just a matter of you and the participants clicking on it to be able to join the meeting. As you can see, I set it for 4:30 in the afternoon, but there's nothing stopping me from joining it early or joining it late. And as the participants come in, it will fill up just like it is doing currently for our Zoom meeting right now. So very obviously affordable and very easy way to connect there with Google Hangouts. And of course, these solutions are also work for mobile devices as well. So that is Google Hangouts. Now, it used to be, Google Hangouts used to have the ability to connect to YouTube Live. So what that meant was you could have a Google Hangout or a Google Meet and stream that meeting to YouTube Live, where an unlimited number of people could watch while the meeting was going on. And that was called Google Hangouts on Air. But unfortunately, I think about a year ago, they discontinued that, and we still don't know why. Especially now, it would have been really, really nice to be able to have that feature. But that's gone away. So, and we were looking for a solution that had the video conferencing capabilities of Google Hangouts, but also the connectivity to YouTube Live. And that's why we came up with Zoom. So why is this important? Well, the reason why we want this connectivity to YouTube Live is with a typical Zoom account, you have a maximum number of participants, meaning, and that's number is 100, meaning that no more than 100 can actually participate in the video conference. What if you have hundreds of people that want to tune in? Well, you have, through Zoom now, you have the ability to connect to YouTube. So really, you can have your conference presenters, maybe your award recipients, or your keynote speakers, whoever's presenting at your event, connect via Zoom. And then everyone else, kind of like your people who would typically just be out in the audience, those people could be tuned in via YouTube and Facebook as well. This Zoom also connects to Facebook. So this, and then along with YouTube's ability to archive those videos, you also have the ability to replay. So your constituents can go back and watch the videos if they weren't able to attend the live presentation. They go back and watch it at their convenience. Stop and start at any time. YouTube also has the ability to has closed captioning. So on those replays, if you're trying to reach communities that are hearing impaired, you have automatic captions as well as automatic translations. So you can translate those videos. The viewer can switch to different languages, Arabic, Spanish, whatever, to have an automatic translation of those proceedings. Right now, we have governments who are also using this same feature. In fact, we have one client, Cherry Hills Village, here, and just to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like, how this could work. Now, this is a government entity, obviously, but if you could think in terms of how this could apply to your nonprofit organization. So here is the video from Tuesday night's meeting. And again, they were connecting via Zoom. So the mayor and the city council members, as well as anyone who wanted to speak at that meeting, were connected via Zoom. And then they also had the ability to do screen shares on, whatever the different documents or PowerPoint presentations or whatever it is they wanted to show. And as I mentioned before, there's also closed captioning that you have for those folks who are hearing impaired, as well as translations to different languages. So again, if you can kind of imagine, conducting your fundraiser or your annual meeting or any way you want to connect with your constituents through this virtual manner, this technology is available to you, and it's super, super affordable. Sorry, I got a comment to slow down on the word. I'll try to slow down on that. I have a bad habit of that. Great. Any questions about anything we have talked about so far? Again, you can use the raise hand feature. You can also comment in the chat box. Great. I'll keep going here. I want to walk you through, well, first let's take a look at Zoom plans and pricing. So they do have a free level. Unfortunately, though, you only have a 40-minute limit on your group meeting. So if your meeting's going to go over 40 minutes, this free plan is probably not going to work for you. Instead, you're going to want to go up to the pro level, which is $14.99 per month. That gives you up to, again, 100 participants. And you have a meeting duration limit of 24 hours. Hopefully your meetings don't go that long. And you also have the ability to record on the cloud or to record locally. Great. Someone just asked if we can get a copy of these instructions. Again, in the chat window at the very top, there is a link to this page here, and it's this one right here, Virtual Communications, Building Community in a Digital Format. And that's all these step-by-step instructions. All right. So that's the Pro plan is probably what you're going to need to use. Now, if you want the ability to stream to YouTube Live, and again, I'll show you how this works in a second here. There's the optional add-on plans here. And you'll need to get this video webinars for an additional $40 per month. And that allows you to stream to YouTube Live and to Facebook Live. So you will need this add-on if that is something you'll want to do with the Zoom platform. Quickly here, I just want to go through setting up a Zoom meeting and to kind of show you some of the controls. Anytime you have a public facing Zoom meeting, you want to be very, very careful that you're not setting yourself up to what's called Zoom bombing. And we'll spend quite a bit of time talking about this. And I don't know if you've heard of this before. It's truly awful. It's happened to me, and I would not wish it on anyone. But it's basically your Zoom meeting getting hijacked by ne'er-do-wells who come in and just kind of take over the meeting and start yelling curse words, screen sharing lewd images, etc. And it's kind of a phenomenon. It's really destructive and truly horrible. So just wanted to show some of these settings that you may want to be aware of to make sure you're protecting yourself and your meetings against unwanted intruders. All right, so this is the Open Media Foundation Zoom account here. And I'm just gonna go over here on the left to meetings, and I'm just gonna schedule a new meeting right here. And so this is where you'll wanna give your meeting a name and set the start date and time and estimated duration. Registration. So this means that the participants in the Zoom meeting will need to be registered before they can attend. Usually we leave this not turned on. However, on the meeting ID, do recommend that you use different meeting IDs for each one right here. And so instead of using the personal meeting ID, which means it's going to repeat over and over, you're going to generate one automatically. And so this will generate a, what is that, 10-digit number that your participants will use to connect, just like you all connected to this one. There is also the ability to require a meeting password. Now, this is where you have to decide, you know, are we trying to open this up to the general public? How many layers of protection do we want to put in before they're admitted into the meeting? This session we had right here, we knew that we were going to be posting this meeting ID link publicly, and we did not want to require a password, so essentially anyone could join. Again, remember, when you're doing that, you're making yourself potentially vulnerable. But as you'll see, there are other ways that you can protect yourself. Videos, so this allows the host or the participants to be able to use video, like you all have I can see some of you all have your cameras on. So if I were to put that on to the off, the participants joining this meeting would not be able to show their webcam, the images on their webcam. And audio, I usually leave this as both. So this means that folks can join either by a telephone number or using their audio that's on their computer. Meeting options, I usually turn this enable join before host off. I, as a host, like to have the session open 15 minutes before. So I'm there anyway, and I don't want participants to be using this Zoom meeting for their personal reasons. You know, if I set this up weeks in advance, and I have this enabled, that could potentially allow them to join and just have a conference on their own. So I typically turn that off. Now, mute participants upon entry. This is a feature that I actually used today for this meeting. So whenever someone new joins, I don't have to worry about turning off their microphone. It'll be already muted when they enter. The waiting room feature is interesting. That Cherry Hills Village, those folks that I showed you earlier, they actually use this feature. I typically do not, but what waiting room does is when you try to join the Zoom meeting, it'll say, okay, the host, you are in a waiting room, and you're waiting for the host to admit you. And the host has to actually go through each person who's trying to join the Zoom meeting and click join and click on them to admit them. So it's another layer of you know, protecting your meeting against unwanted people. Authenticated users, these are people with Zoom accounts, so that would require them to actually have a Zoom account. Even a free one's fine, but they would have to have an account and be signed into Zoom to join the meeting. Again, another layer of protection. And then finally, record the meeting. You have the ability to record either on your computer or record in the cloud. And this, just by turning this on, once you start the meeting, it will automatically start recording. If you're forgetful like me, this can hopefully, you know, take care of one less thing you have to worry about to have a record for your meeting. Great, I'm gonna go ahead and click save. So this is going to create the meeting. Here, and once I do that, here is the link. So here is the link for the Zoom meeting that you can share. Either, you know, however you feel is appropriate. Over here, there's this copy invitation, and this also has dial-in numbers. So if folks are dialing in, they can use these numbers to join that way as well. Now, if, like we did for this one, we shared it, you know, via email blast, and we also put it up on our Facebook page. But just be careful, the Zoom bombers, that is where they are going to find, most likely they're going to find your meeting on Facebook. It's pretty easy to do a search on current live Zoom meetings. And so they'll just go around and look for one that is going on, so it's currently going on, and also has you know, no protections on there. So, and they'll go in there and start shouting and just take over the meeting. It's truly, like I said, it's truly horrible. Great. I'm just looking at the chat thing here. It looks like Brandon's answering some of these questions. Good. Again, any questions about what we've covered so far? All right, so I had promised you all about connecting to YouTube. So just really quickly, I'll show you how that works. Now, I don't think you can see my Zoom controls at the top of my screen here, but when you're doing a screen share like what I'm doing now, the Zoom controls move from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen. And if you were to see those Zoom controls all the way on the side, on the right-hand side, there are 3 dots and it says more. So if you click on that, and again, these instructions are inside of this curriculum right here. And if you click on those 3 dots, you can scroll down and you can see that there's an option to connect to live on Facebook, as well as live on YouTube, as well as custom live streaming services. I'm just going to click on live on YouTube and select my work YouTube account here. And this is, so what it's doing is connecting to my YouTube account here, and it's going to create the YouTube event and start streaming. And it takes about 20 seconds for it to start. And if you're doing this, this is probably, you know, a good time to let the participants and they should know anyways, but they'll let the participants know that, hey, we're going live. We're going to be live on YouTube, so they're not like, I don't know, using bad language or something like that that could be potentially embarrassing. All right, so what you're seeing here is the YouTube page. If I unmute this, you're going to hear a 10, 20-second delay, I think. So that is our Zoom meeting with my screen share going live. With this, I could go down here and take the share link, copy and paste that to Facebook, whatever, embed it into my organization's website, however I'd want to get this live feed out to people. And again, as long as they have connection to YouTube, they'll have access to this live feed, and this opens up, again, unlimited viewing potential to all of your constituents.
In addition, that viewing potential is of course safe from anyone, you know, interacting or participating in ways that you don't want them to. So if you're concerned about you know, privacy or security of your Zoom meeting, one great way to do it is to limit the number of participants, whether you're doing that through authentication or some of the other methods that John went through, and then distribute this link to a broader audience. It's a great way to reach an unlimited amount of potential without them necessarily participating.
Great, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, so again, your presenters, your award recipients, your keynote speakers could be all participants on Zoom, and then everyone else who's just, you know, viewing can be tuned into the YouTube feed. Great. On the, as a host of a Zoom meeting, and again, I don't think you're going to be able to see this on my screen, but there is the participants window, and right now there's 33 participants on this meeting. And as I scroll through it, I have the ability to mute and unmute folks that are in the meeting. At the bottom there, at the bottom of the participants window, there's little 3 dots there. If I click on that, there are more options here to, again, that give you control about what people can do as participants in your Zoom meeting. So these are other ways to protect yourself. For instance, you have the ability to allow participants to unmute themselves. And I have actually disabled that feature. So none of the participants can come in and, you know, unmute themselves and start, you know, saying bad words or whatever. So, and again, this is kind of, you know, it's something you have to weigh and consider. Yes, you're giving up some of the ability for a free flow conversation, but at the same time, you've got to protect yourself as well. There's also a checkbox here for, again, mute participants upon entry. And again, that is enabled, meaning when people join the meeting, they have they're going to be muted, right? So they're going to be automatically muted, which will cut down on some of that distracting background chatter. And we've all been on those, you know, video conferences where someone's, you know, dog is barking in the background or something like that. And you obviously want to control as much as that background noise and those distractions as possible. Yeah, it's not just it's not necessarily just, you know, people who are there for malicious reasons. There's also, you know, it can be accidental background noises. Happened recently to the U.S. Supreme Court, embarrassing thing where someone on their virtual court proceedings was flushing the toilet in the background. So it can happen. And we want to try to limit that as much as possible. I want to go ahead and stop this live stream going to YouTube. So just so you know that is ending. Great. A few more settings that I think I would like to make you all aware of that you can turn on and off inside of your Zoom account. Again, this is our Zoom account here. I'm going to go into settings here, and I just want to point out a few that you may want to disable. One is the ability for file transfer. So I've disabled this. So folks aren't coming in and using this feature to spread viruses, to be bad. You can even, now we obviously have chat enabled, but you can disable chat if you think that would be distracting. There is also the whiteboard feature. So there's a feature in, I can't remember where it is, but there's a feature where you can like draw just like a virtual whiteboard. I've got that turned off because apparently there's been examples of Zoom bombing where the hijackers are using the whiteboard to write bad words on the screen. I've also disabled screen sharing for users. Another Zoom bombing technique is they will actually screen share and show lewd images. So be very, very careful of that. Disabling screen sharing will protect you from that happening. So just some of the other settings there in Zoom, in the Zoom settings that you may want to consider when you're holding these virtual meetings. Again, they're all listed here in this document. This also mentions the waiting room again and the passcode. So yeah, take advantage of those security features. All right, real quickly, I want to talk about Open.media. And this, as Brandon mentioned before, is our government transparency software that we started that allows small municipalities and up to state governments to catalog and archive their the video proceedings of their sessions. And Cherry Hills Village is a good example of that. They're a client of the Open.media software. Before the pandemic began, they had regular city council meetings inside of their council chambers, and then any documents that are associated with that meeting, agendas, etc., can be attached to this. There's also the ability to add these what are called timestamps. So these are kind of like chapter markers that allow you to jump to points of the meeting that are of particular concern or interest to you. So say, I have no interest in all this early stuff. I just want to get to Council Bill number 1. I can click on that and it'll go to right to that part of the meeting. So that's for governments. Well, why would that be helpful for you all as nonprofit organizations? As Brandon mentioned, we are opening up this service to nonprofit organizations during this time in case they have, I don't know, something like a conference. Usually it's like a multi-day event with numerous breakout sessions. And this is an example of one that we did for Mass Challenge in Texas a couple of years ago. And it's, you know, it was an event, a conference type event that took place with numerous seminars over various weeks. So this software allows the embed of all of this information into your organization's website, connecting to the YouTube videos of the session with those chapter markers and any documentation that's associated with that session. So we just wanted to show you this to you briefly in case you see you've got a big conference type event coming up in the near future and you're considering doing it in a virtual manner as opposed to the in-person type conferences that we go to all the time at hotels. And you want to maintain social distancing, this may be a great solution for you. And we're offering this again to nonprofits during this pandemic for free. So please reach out to either me or Brandon if you're interested in taking advantage of that. Brandon, was there anything I missed on that?
No, I don't think so. I think that was thorough. Thank you, John.
Great. You're probably pretty tired of hearing me talking, so I want to turn it over to Brandon. He's going to start talking about video. So these are tips for communicating with video and digital communications.
Thanks, John.
Brandon, should I stop my screen share or just leave it up for now?
I think you're good to leave it up.
All right, let me know if you
have something worth sharing. I think this section could potentially be, I don't know, a little preachy maybe. So really the intent of these guidelines and suggestions are to limit the disconnect with your audience. And we're all in a place in a world now where, speaking of distractions, I've got barking dogs. We're all in a place right now where it's not only are we working from home, but it's difficult to do so, right? And we want to do our best to create a sense of community and a sense of connection and engagement. And these sort of best practices that I'm going to jump through quickly are really just intended to minimize the distraction and give people the easiest viewing experience possible. So when we're talking about video, the first little section here that John's got pulled up right there kind of covers 3-point lighting, and it really is just best practice. I know we've all been on meetings and we all live in situations where, the best option for us, unfortunately, has a bright window right behind us, and it blows it out, and it makes it difficult for anyone to see your face. So things to consider is just sort of a basic 3-point lighting system that we use in video production when we're creating videos. You have a light behind you as your backlight to sort of create some separation from your background, but really what you're thinking about is putting your main source of light in front of you, either on both sides in kind of like a 45-degree angle. I don't have the ideal setup here now. As you can see, I have got a light over kind of on my left, sort of functioning as a fill with this light that's a little too far over to my right, creating a little bit too much heat here. Nobody's asking any of us to become professional videographers, right? That's not what we're here for. But we have found that that people's engagement level tends to increase a little bit when you can sort of do your best to sort of make it look as well as you can. And again, like this curriculum says, avoiding flashing lights or your monitor's brightness. I know that if I crank my monitor brightness, it can also act as sort of a light, which actually can be useful if you're in a darker space. So consider, adjusting your monitor brightness just to make it look, as good as possible. I've got a stupid little like bendy neck lamp over here that's kind of putting a little bit more light from this side to kind of help even out the exposure. It's not doing a great job, but a little bit something like that can go a long way as well. Again, these are just suggestions that we've found to kind of help keep people engaged. One thing that I notice myself really having difficulty engaging with is when you've got the camera way up here, or or the opposite where you can't quite see everyone. So we're all used to seeing videos and things that are framed using the basic rule of thirds, right? So where you've got kind of your eye line in that top sort of third, and then your mouth kind of in that bottom, chin kind of in that bottom third. Again, there's no need to be really precise here, but we have found that it is much less distracting when you have when you're framed a little bit more deliberately. And the same goes for backgrounds. I think we've all had experiences perhaps by now with digital backgrounds and using Zoom and their digital backgrounds. I think if you want to, it's fun, it's interesting. I also think that you should be considering whether or not that's a distraction and whether or not just your actual environment is superior. I personally I feel a little bit disconnected if I don't have a digital background and someone else does. I don't know, I feel like less of the cool kid or something. I don't know, I use your discretion, but again, just be considering things that aren't too distracting, whether that's your natural background, having televisions or things on in the background can be awfully distracting, and you create a disconnect. Similarly, audio, as John was talking about, whether we're flushing toilets or things like that, try and be mindful, but also be forgiving, because we're all adapting to this work from home climate, and we have to be understanding and flexible as well. But anything that you can do to sort of mitigate that, I think, is beneficial. I know John has some earbuds. He also has a headset. I know a lot of colleagues that I work with have that and find that to be really valuable and useful. It makes it a little bit easier to get the microphone kind of close to your face. I feel like built-in microphones often work just as well. It's really kind of a proximity thing rather than a quality of the microphone. And again, just try and test your audio before your call begins. This part is particularly preachy. I want to talk a little bit about etiquette, though. And when I say etiquette, I'm really talking about, the name of this workshop is building community in a digital format. And while most of what we're focused on is really just best practices to using and getting Zoom, I think this bit sort of kind of gets again into minimizing that disconnect so that you do kind of create that connection with the people that you're meeting with. John's talked a lot about moderating, and I've seen some questions in the chat about moderating. I really, whatever tool you're using, whether it's Google Meet or Zoom or WebEx or Teams, familiarize yourself with the controls and understand how to remove someone if necessary. As a host, you can click on the more option next to someone's name in Zoom, and you can choose to remove them. Familiarize yourself with that. Familiarize yourself with the moderation tools that include hand raising, and take full advantage of chat. I don't think Dana's on this call. Dana from Metro DNA is just someone who's a great convener and a partner of our organization. She hosted a convening with about 65 people or so, and really just did this incredible job of really authentically connecting to people, acknowledging the limitations of Zoom, right? Like if we're having technical difficulties, there's no need to back ourselves into a corner of shame, but acknowledge, hey, guess what? We're all learning this together. We're figuring this out together, and work towards really truly being authentic, and there's no need to hide or cover your mistakes. You can acknowledge them, and we can all work through them together. And that includes things like whether you're Zoom bombed or, I think we're all sort of learning this together, and the more authentic you are about your response to difficulties, I think the better. And in your facilitation of people and meetings, I think that there's a really great opportunity for us to connect with a larger scale of people across a larger proximity and geography. And I think we're all trying to explore ways that we can best do that. This goes into a little bit, again, of kind of meeting management. I think that probably by now, 90% of us are all, facing a little bit of Zoom fatigue. And so thank you for continuing that trend as you tune in today. But I think it's important to ask ourselves, like, do these meetings really need to happen? And I think it's just kind of a common decency. So making sure that your agenda is tight and it's concise, and that you're honoring people's time, and that you're being flexible with everything that people have to contend with at home. I think kind of considering all of those things really ties into the authenticity piece again, and really building that connection with people virtually. It's a hard thing to do, but perhaps it's a good time for us to double check ourselves and ask if this meeting is actually necessary. And then we just have a list in this curriculum of personal best practices, muting yourself if your host hasn't muted you, so that, you can kind of mitigate any distractions. And mirroring your attendees. This is, again, just kind of working towards building that sense of community and connection. If others are using a camera, maybe you can use a camera too if you have one available to you. If they're not, then maybe you don't need to. If they're not muting, maybe you don't need to. I mean, just kind of mirror their participants in your meeting in order to further that sense of connection. And I know I'm always wondering, like, when I'm having particularly, you know, meetings one-on-one with people or just a small group of folks, I'm always wondering, you know, if you know, their cameras are going on and off, like, I wonder, like, are they really, really engaged? It goes again, we have to be flexible. You know, we're all navigating. You know, I have a cat that's about to pounce any minute. I imagine there are instances when we would want to turn our cameras on and off, but be mindful and I guess essentially try and, you know, read the room in order to help develop that connection even further. Yeah, and I find it really handy to use this this kind of chat function in order to inform people if I need to dip out of a meeting early or anything. We've got a great question. Since you don't have a camera, how can you put a profile picture up? When you download the Zoom app, I can do a quick screen share here. I believe you should be able to see this. So when you launch the screen app, you can click on your icon here, and then you can choose settings, and then you should be able to find it in here if I'm right. Am I right, John? Maybe I'm wrong.
I think that's right. Is it under profile?
It's funny that I just changed it earlier today, and I don't even remember. Oh, my profile, correct. And it'll open it in your browser, and you can log in and change it on that homepage. And rather than, let's just do this really quick. There it is. You can choose change or delete as soon as you log in on your profile. And then it gives you the option to kind of crop your picture. And I think it's nice. I think it's nice to have that, you know, again, kind of to each his own and whatever is comfortable with you. But it's nice to have a face there. Great. I want to talk, I mean, again, trying to drive a little bit more at that building community. We're in a really interesting time as nonprofit organizations. And one thing that we've found a lot of folks talking about, in addition to taking their fundraisers virtual and taking their, you know, their board meetings and convenings virtual, we're talking a lot about trying to engage the public in helping further the message of the organization. So this section just kind of covers recording a little bit. I think that John talked about starting the recording in the settings of your Zoom meeting. Whatever platform you're using, you can find a way to record. And then you can just edit that, whether you, afterwards, if you upload it to YouTube, you can edit it directly in YouTube. And I think John was actually going to show us, demonstrate really quickly how we can edit something in YouTube.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. So any video that you have in YouTube, if you do need to do basic edits to it, you totally have the ability to do it inside of YouTube. You don't have to download it, use a video editor, and then re-upload it. Just to show you an example, let's use this one right here. So if I click on this video here, and when you open it up, you'll have the editor feature right here. And so, especially, you know, say you have a lot of space at the beginning of your video where nothing is happening because we started our YouTube stream and we just want to make sure it's working, and we're waiting. And say we started it 5 or 10 minutes early, and we're waiting for the top of the hours to start. So you have a whole 10 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that you can trim off. Well, it's really easy to do. All you have to do is inside of the editor here, it's just, oops, you gotta use the blue one. Use the portion, use the little playhead here and select the portion of the video that you want to cut off. Then you click preview, and then you go up and click save. And I don't want to do it on this particular video, but that's an easy way to trim off the beginning or an end, or you can even trim a middle part of a video without having to use a video editor that's on your computer. So totally doable inside of YouTube.
Thanks, John.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it is again. I mean, any kind of recording, whatever platform you decide to use, you can upload it to YouTube, and that's a good, easy, free way to do it. But in addition, you know, Macs have iMovie. PCs come with Microsoft Photos, in which you can edit. OpenShot Video Editor is one that we've had experience with, and DaVinci Resolve is a little bit more high-end and complex for video editing. But yeah, I think that, you know, it's definitely worth trimming and editing your webinars if you're going to make them accessible to people. One additional option, you can use our Open.media software and Agenda Timestamp to skip through different portions of your video if you didn't want to edit it. That's one option as well. I just see a question in the chat. A couple. Any experience with 360 camera work and live streaming? YouTube does have the ability to live stream 360. I have not done it. We actually are moving into some 360 sort of experiments with some PSAs that we're producing. So I'm sure, Jennifer, if you want to shoot me an email, I can keep you updated with what we learn. I think it would be a great experiment and a really immersive way to reach your audience, and particularly since you're looking as a performance, I think it'd be a great way to try it. I would be mindful of needing a really robust internet connection. And if you, I believe that the 360 function still exists in YouTube. I'll check it out. But if not, there are various live streaming platforms that will allow you to do 360. I think Vimeo does as well. And Catherine, I hope you find a charger. Thanks for joining us while you're here. I appreciate it. A little bit about delivery of those files that you're recording. One of the reasons we want to talk again about this is inspiring people to communicate for you, right? Like, we're now all living in the age of self-recording and cameras and whatnot, and doing things like this. So one great potential that this has is that people have time and they have the resources at their disposal to create video messages for you and your organization. So whether you're sharing that with social media, or, you know, using that on your website, I think it's a good opportunity for us to all kind of consider the tools that people are using regularly now and how we might be able to leverage that in order to get us, you know, get folks to spread the word. So one option, and one thing that we're working with a lot of nonprofits as they begin to take their galas and their fundraisers online, we're finding that we're asking people to record their own content in lieu of, or as an augment, in order to augment videos that are pre-produced. So we're finding that it's a really good, authentic way to connect with your audience. People can record it with their phone. They can send it to you via Dropbox or Google Drive or WeTransfer, you know, a file sharing service. That's a really good, a good way to get people to generate content for you. It's an easy ask. You can ask your volunteers, you can ask the clients that you serve, you can even ask your staff to produce little video messages. You can edit them, you can put, you know, you can get them to brand it with your brand voice, whether you're talking about the things that you're looking for, that you're hoping that they're saying, the messaging that you're hoping to hit. It's okay to ask for that sort of thing. I would love it if you'd record a testimonial. These are the points that we want to hit. If you record this, we'd love to share it on social media. We'll add our logo, and you know, it's a good piece of content that you can generate for free. And we find that when that happens, and when you're doing that, particularly from a social media perspective, if the client or the person that's recording it for you uploads it to their Facebook and then tags you, whether it's a hashtag or something, then that's probably the easiest and best way. It'll get the most traction on Facebook if you then share their post. But if not, they can deliver the files to you. You can put your logo on it through one of the video editing programs that are free that we just discussed. And start to share and distribute that content. It's just a really great opportunity for us to all sort of maintain that social connection and spread the word about our organizations. And now that we're all getting so used to it, it's a good way to activate your clients or your constituents. The last thing kind of we have here to talk about, I just wanted to make everyone aware of, we put a social media toolkit together for census, for our census outreach. And this is really just, it's just a toolkit explaining best practices for social media. This is specifically related to census, but there's a lot of really great information in there. And one reason that we wanted to bring it up is because it might be beneficial for your organization to help build capacity as you see kind of what this example toolkit looks like. It includes calendars and a list of content. But this might be something that you want to create for your own organization to build your internal capacity, particularly if you're going to outreach to constituents and clients and ask them, hey, will you make some content for me, or will you post some content for me? It's time for us to activate our volunteers and get them engaged in that social media presence. So this is just a resource. Again, it's linked in the curriculum. You can check it out. Hope it's valuable to you. You might want to, again, use some of these best practices, or you might find that you want to create something similar. And if you have any questions as you're doing that, you can all feel free to reach out. Yeah, so Jennifer, it sounds like a really exciting project that you might be potentially working on. I'd love to discuss it with you further. And again, as anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. But I believe, John, that's maybe the end of our curriculum.
It is. We can also, I can try to unmute everyone. No, I only have the mute all feature. Sorry. If you do want to speak, just use the raise hand button on the participants window. And we love to have you chime in, but this is a good opportunity to ask questions, maybe talk about your own nonprofit organization, or what ideas you have, or what's worked and what hasn't worked for you.
Catherine, that's a great question about virtual meeting icebreakers. Some things that I've seen be really effective, I guess it depends on the tenor or the tone of your meeting, but there are several survey like online web apps, like I'll just put a couple here, like menti.com is a great one where you can just create a like a survey and then get people will just like log in with the code. It's MENTI. People just log into the event with a code, and they can take surveys. You can create a survey for them. So one really great and effective icebreaker, again from Dana from Metro DNA, who did such a great job facilitating. It was a really candid question of, how is everyone? Like, are you, she kind of gave a range of options. I'm good, I'm here, what do you need from me? All the way to, I am anxious and I feel like the world's falling apart. And it just kind of gave like a sense that it shows real-time responses, not like anonymous responses, but it'll show like, 5 people said this and 4 people said this and nobody said this. I feel like it's a really great way. It's also good looking, and it creates a little bit of engagement. That so far has been probably, to me, the best that I have found that isn't really like awkward. I feel like lightning round questions can be a little bit awkward virtually. One good thing to do, I think, is to just have everyone because in a normal kind of environment like that, we would all go around the room and like introduce ourselves and say something about ourselves. One good thing to use the chat function for is just that, hey everyone, write in the chat as you arrive, why don't you tell us your name and what you're looking out your window, I think is what Dana used as an example. I think it's a good way to use that chat as sort of a substitute for those lightning round introductions.
Great. Any other questions, comments?
Great. Well, one more time, we also want to hear from you. We want to know what's working for you. We want to know what obstacles you're facing. We want to know how we might be able to help you. We want to know how we help how we can help our community and how we can help our nonprofit partners. So feel free to reach out. Again, there's John's email address, or you can reach me at brandon@openmediafoundation.org. And I appreciate everyone for taking the time today. I hope it was valuable. We welcome your feedback.
Great, thanks everyone. Really appreciate you joining. Again, the curriculum for this is will be on that same link. We're also going to be posting a replay of the video on that same link. And again, don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.